Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode. In today's episode, I will be talking a little bit about the exposure triangle that you probably heard of in photography. Just a little short video about how it works, and it will be divided into different episodes, each talking about the specific part of the exposure triangle. The exposure triangle is a term used in photography to describe the relationship between three key elements that determine the exposure of the photograph. That's aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. So let's talk about each in short. So here I got a nice big lens from my Mamiya 645 that will help us demonstrate what is aperture exactly. So as you see inside the lens here, when you turn your aperture ring, unless you got a newer camera that doesn't have an aperture ring, just it controls it on the body, but that would be more in the digital world. Manual lenses always have the aperture ring on them. So when you have this giant hole inside the lens, let's shine a light through it, and as you see when I'm closing down the aperture, you see that hole inside there is getting smaller and smaller. Aperture determines how much light reaches the sensor. The smaller the number, the larger the opening is. The larger the number, the smaller the opening is on there. And f-stop is determined by the focal point of the lens and the width of the hole opening. So that's one reason why bright lens, even for newer digital cameras that have a 1.8 or 1.4 opening, usually have much bigger lenses in size than lenses that have a 4 or 5.6 opening. Right? So this is especially a larger lens because this is for a medium format camera. Yes, I took it to compare because you could see through it much easier. The effects you could achieve with aperture alone is if you open up your aperture to have a nice big hole shining through, just like that. That allows you to get that nice bokeh or whatever you want to call it. I heard different people calling it different ways, but I call it bokeh, so let's keep it at that. If you want to reach that nice blurred background, the bokeh, you have to open up your aperture as wide as possible. The wider you open it, the more blur you get in the background. On the opposite side, the more you close it, the more things come into focus. You could control how much you want to contain in your depth of field with your aperture ring. Of course, the negative side is if you want as much in focus as possible, you're going to have a very tiny hole that's going to allow very little light to reach the sensor, and that would force you to use higher ISO or a longer shutter speed. So that's the balance you have to have in aperture. We'll talk about aperture and the effects you can reach with it in a different video related to aperture alone. Now, shutter speed. Shutter speed refers to the amount of time that the curtain or shutter allows the light going through the lens and reaching the shutter, how long the film is exposed to that light. Also, the effects you can achieve with shutter speed is very fast shutter speeds, like 1/1000th or 1/2000th of a second. If you have a camera that could reach that high, that allows you to capture very fast moving action without blurring it. On the other hand, very low shutter speeds allow you to get motion blur, like you've seen photos of cars on the highways, you know, those light smudges made and all that. That is made thanks to longer shutter speeds, like a few seconds long. Also, water that is blurred, rivers and all that is also from longer shutter speeds. So you have to adjust the shutter speed to the situation you want. If you have a static target that's not moving at all, you don't need a fast shutter speed then. But then again, if you're doing sports photography or bird photography or anything like that, then you will have to use higher shutter speeds to capture the action. That again will be in a video related just to shutter speed with examples of photos that you can take controlling just the shutter speed alone. And the final end of the triangle is ISO. Of course, you got film stock in different ISO ratings, right? You got films from just a few ISO up to a few thousand ISO, right? The point in that is how sensitive that film is to light. The more sensitive it is, the higher an ISO number it has, the more light it will capture during that time that the shutter is open. But the negative sides of that are that the higher the ISO number, the more grainy your film will be. The lower the ISO number, the more fine grained, smaller grained particles will be on that film. But then again, you will need more time or more light for that film to capture it. So they as well have different uses. And again, we will be taking photos in our videos with different ISO film speeds, and as well we will make a video about film ISO all separately with examples. So please remember to subscribe so you don't miss it, and hit that bell button. So together, these three elements work in conjunction to control the exposure and effects you achieve on the photograph. Adjusting one element will always require you to adjust one or more of the other elements to maintain the correct exposure. Balancing these three elements is crucial to achieving the desired exposure and a well-balanced photograph. The other videos related to this topic about exposure, aperture, and ISO, they will all be linked in the description when they come out. So if it's not in the description, that means it still didn't come out yet. Please remember to subscribe so you don't miss them when they do come out. Thank you for watching, my friends. Hit the like button to help with the YouTube algorithm, and see you in the next video, my friends. Take care.